when no one can hear, I'll sing my space shanty. Let the stars draw near, raising up the anchor, setting sails to the sky, bidding farewell to this world, no tears left to cry. With constellations as my compass, I'll navigate to the outer realms where my fate awaits. Oh, I'm a stargazer, drifting through the night, chasing dreams that sparkle like stars shining bright. I'll serenade the heavens with my cosmic lullaby, a space shanty melody as I say my last goodbye. Set sail on a ship, to the stars we shall roam, through the vastness of space, no place like our home. Hoist the sails high, let the solar winds blow. This cosmic sea shanty is a tale we all know. Navigating constellations, charting the unknown. With the stardust in our veins, we are never alone. From the Milky Way shores to the depths of black holes, we'll sing our sea shanty as the universe unfolds. Sail up high to the galactic sky on our moonlit voyage. We'll keep reaching high. We're sailors of the cosmos, a crew full of might. Let's sing this sea shanty under starry night's light.
Hoist the sails and let the wind guide our way. We're the spacemen sailing the cosmic bay. From Jupiter to Saturn we'll deliver our freight on our starship, sailing through the interplanetary strait. With a hardy crew and a cargo of dreams, through the nebula's mist we'll forge our own schemes. In the vastness of space where no man has been, we'll navigate, chart the unexplored galactic highway. Give home, mateys, upon the starry sea. We're the spacemen sailing through infinity. With our voices loud and our spirits free, we'll voyage across the celestial sea. Oh, voyage across the celestial sea.
Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to the stream. Hope you're having a fantastic day. Let me just adjust the volume here. It's the only way I can compete with the music. How's everyone doing today? Hope everyone's doing well. Ooh. And there we go. That's a bit better. Now you know that I do these recordings in the void of space, a black hole, in fact. This is the only light in the black hole. We're using all the light to power the house. We have to be quite honest. I think that's a bit too low now. Take it up one notch. There we go. Everything seems to be working. The attack eyebrows are on the attack. I swear my eyebrows weren't this bad when I was younger. As I've gotten older, they've gotten more attack-worthy. Battle caterpillars, if you will. Some cold coffee. Some cold hydration. We're winning. Just checking to make sure the aircon is off. Otherwise, there's a humming sound. Humming. There we go. It's a bit better. A bit more volume. Oh, starting off tired tonight. That's great. Gonna be fantastic. I'm gonna be yawning through all the stories. Yes, the hydration does lose. Most of the time. Problem is, when you try and keep the, no? Oh, it was the microphone. Sounds like an old rickety, door, in fact. Not a problem, Postmanic. It's all good. We got 3 people in the Twitch chat. With views like this, we can eye that top 1%. Give it the steely eye, with the battle caterpillars at the ready. Yeah, probably. But I don't move it while I'm recording normally, so it's not an issue. It's one of those sleek designs, so all the stuff is inside the frame. It'd be a pain in the arse to oil all of that. It's the springs that are causing the problem. Good evening, Gregory Burke. Thank you for popping into the stream, and it is my absolute pleasure. I am glad you're enjoying the content. Yes, yes. Well, I don't swing the mic around like a music singer, so I should be fine. I get it into position once, and then it's there. It's just thought I was coming through a bit. There we go. Coming through a bit soft, so I was just moving it around. It's got character. Well, not a good character, but just a character. That's the one thing that's been the most difficult with narrating, is I have to sit still. Which in the beginning was a lot easier said than done. And in fact, this microphone isn't my best microphone. It's my second best microphone. Because I went and I bought the best microphone, well, that I could afford. And it's, at the time, I was standing when I narrated. And I got into the habit of doing that with my toes while I stood there. For no real reason. And this microphone was picking me up the sound of my toes rubbing against the carpet. So, yeah, pretty much. 2 things you need to do to be a narrator is, not to be, is claustrophobic is number 1. And hyperactive is the other. If you are even remotely, you don't even have to be full-on claustrophobic, just uncomfortable in an enclosed space, narrating and voice acting probably aren't for you. My little studio is huge compared to what some people do. And what I'm going to be doing in Portugal, which is recording in a cupboard. Good evening, Zigzag Parsley 72. Hope you're having a fantastic evening. Gregory, we're just waiting for the Portuguese consulate to get back to us. Should be hopefully this week. And then we can start getting stuff done. Put furniture on the ocean, put pets in the pet carrying people, and give all the rest of our stuff off to hospice. Yeah. Yeah, there are people that narrate in I want to say 1 meter by 1.5 meter by 2 meters, little enclosed area. And the problem is you've got the foam, which absorbs light as well. So it is oppressive. And the sound dampening, strangely enough, also makes it feel a lot more enclosed than it is. Because you're not getting the bounces, the reverberations. So if you don't like closed spaces, or if it makes you tense, probably don't want to be a voice actor. Thank you, Gregory. Thank you. The lawyers reckon it should be a slam dunk, but, life, kicking one in one's balls. If one has balls. And red tape, also kicking the same place. So we'll take it as a slam dunk when it happens. But in the meantime, we shall continue doing the stuff that we do, to pay the bills, to have fun, to have a chat, all the good things. Coffee. All right, I think we've waited enough. I think everybody's going to join has joined. And if they haven't yet, well, they can join later. We can move on to the next window. Oh, wait, no, not that one. This one. No, cancel. Cancel. Okay, there we are, and then there we are. We're there. Yes. Guilty by association. Okay, we're ready for the first story of the evening, called Variety. I'm sorry to hear that you've been going through some tough times, Roman. And I'm glad that at least I can help a little. Thank you for the kind words. Okay, on to the first story. Variety. Cool. What are we on? 102. Alrighty. Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to this latest edition of HFY, where I take old stories I've narrated and update them to modern audio standards. This particular story is called Variety, written by Algae Father Anthracite. You humans never cease to astound with your sheer variability. At last count, there are at least 4 distinct breeds, Grigus said. He reached across the table to pour his companion some more space wine. Man, the space wine is crazy good. Who knew that zero-G racking could enhance the flavor so much? Said Sean, as he swirled the purple-red liquid. Wait, 4 breeds? He moved several small plates of meats and cheeses around, and started to work on a French loaf, slicing it up. Indeed, replied Grigus, filling his own glass as well. Homo sapien sapiens, Homo sapien mechanicus, Homo sapien oceanus. He paused to sample his own beverage, and Homo sapien Vicovus? Is this a word? Pronouns. That does not help me at all. Vocovus. Vocovus?
Vocivus vel vocivus.
Vocivus.
Vocivus vel vocivus.
Vocivus. Okay. Vocivus. Okay. Just double checking. Vicovus. Vocivus. He paused to sample his own beverage. Homo sapien Vocivus. Really? Space humans are considered a separate breed now? I mean, Oceanus, I get. The whole line went through generations of gene alteration. Gills would be nice. I'm not going to lie. And Mechanicus, I suppose they are born with nanobot antibodies and neural augmentation. So yeah, but space humans? Sean took a sip of his wine and a bite of the crusty French bread, smeared with freglane. Smeared with freglane butter. Apparently, they are born with higher body temperature, lower bone and muscle density, even when they have artificial gravity, and superior blood oxygenation. Also, they developed a distinct mutation of the inner ear that lets them operate in zero-G without vertigo or dizzy spells, even with sudden and radical perspective shifts. But they can still balance in gravity like normal. Grigus reached for some very pungent cheese, spreading it on a piece of French bread, and popping the whole thing into his grinders. He let out a huffing sigh of pleasure. Huh. Well, ain't that something? How's the Carnackian Brule cheese? Sean asked. Deliciousness in itself. Nope. Deliciousness itself. Do try some. Grigus passed over the plate, and Sean began to make himself a little cheese sandwich. Really, it was the inner ear thing. It breeds true, apparently, and that combined with 100 or so generations of natural selection to acquire the other traits was enough for the galactic quorum. Wrong person. Really, it was... Good evening, Coyote Havoc. Hope you're having a fantastic day. It was the inner ear thing. Really, it was the inner ear thing. It breeds true, apparently, and that combined with 100 or so generations of natural selection to acquire the other traits was enough for the galactic legal quorum to issue a writ of speciation. To issue a writ of speciation. Congratulations on expanding your family, my friend. Grigus held up his glass, and Sean, still chewing his grilled cheese sandwich, raised his glass. They clinked them together over the charcuterie platter. They clinked them together over the charcuterie platter spread across the table, and each sipped a drink. "You know what they say," said Sean, holding out a plate of cured sliced meat. "Variety is the spice of life. Dude, this Taloxian stretched sausage is amazing."
"Indeed, it is most compelling spice. Thank you."
End of story. Okie dokie. One down, more than one to go. ASMR coffee drinking. No, all good, Coyote, all good. It wasn't an interruption. I made a mistake, so I had to stop anyway. Story number next. Greetings, ladies and gents, and welcome to this latest edition of Read TVOS, where I take old stories I've narrated and update into modern audio standards. This particular story is called Artifacts, written by Algie Father Anthracite. Alan was laying on the bottom of a large hole, wielding a little brush. Carefully, he brushed aside the dirt from a small piece of unknown artifact. It was some sort of ceramic vessel, broken into pieces ages ago, and buried... Nope, that was weird. Broken into pieces ages ago, and... Sometimes the mic does that. Sort of ceramic vessel. I've spent many hours trying to figure out why the mic does that. Some sort of ceramic vessel, because it's not consistent. Broken into pieces ages ago, and buried in a midden. Alan was here working on his xenoarchaeology degree. He'd spent 6 years studying... He'd spent 6 years studying all he could about archaeology, recovery, and perseverance. Not having a good night tonight. He'd spent 6 years studying all he could about archaeology, recovery, and preservation techniques, and Cherokee culture. He carefully gripped the shard of a pair of tweezers and picked it out of the dirt. He placed it in a small compartment of a divided tray, and noted the lot number, depth, time of day, compartment number, and all other data relevant to the piece. He turned back to the dirt and started brushing it away, layer by layer, again. No, it's an actual problem with the microphone. Because I've had it in this, in the recording software, in OBS, and in my old recording software. So it's 3 different bits of software that the problem happens again. Jane sat at a workbench. She placed the piece of ceramic on the work surface and carefully examined the surface pattern. She tried lining it up with several other pieces until she found one where the patterns matched up. Using a small piece of clay, she stuck the 2 pieces together. Several days of tedious mixing and matching, and she had reassembled a tall, narrow vase-like vessel. The surface was covered in a series of symbols and images. Jane catalogued the pieces she had used to reconstruct the piece. Where and when they were found, she entered it all into the log file. Once she had finished logging the piece and all of its particularities, she retrieved another set of pieces and began again. Stephanie sat in front of her PC. Images of newly reconstructed vase-like objects were on her screen. It was from a pre-contact civilization and had been identified as most likely being a Cherubiki in origin. She started by isolating the symbols on the vase and copying them to a file. She printed a hard copy of the file. She went to her bookcase and found the reference books related to the Cherubiki and all their languages. Setting them all down, she Setting them all down, she started looking up symbols in all the books. Slowly, she narrowed down the options until she was certain it was the language called Slowly, she narrowed down the options until she was certain there was a language called Chihanagop, a derivative language from the Cherubiki root language spoke by a small, isolated group of island dwellers. She spent the next several days translating the symbols. She sent the list of references, translations, and images to the project manager, and started on the next translation. Darrell gathered all the data, the site information, the images of the vase, the multiple versions of the translation. He went over everything, verified every detail for the 1000th time. Once he was certain everything was correct, he labeled the whole chain of recovery complete. He packaged the vase, translation, reference material, and data logs and sent them to storage to await the completion of the dig and recovery. He opened the next folder and saw that it was also... He opened the next folder and saw that it was a metal tube covered in hash marks, a form of accounting record used by the Cherubiki. They started to verify the data on the piece, one of the thousands of artifacts found at the site. Anna stood in front of a vase, tall and cylindrical. It was covered in images and symbols. On a small plaque mounted on the wall next to the vase were a translation and an explanation of the object's origin. Kuramaga, the Cherubiki ambassador, stood reading the plaque. After a moment, he turned and studied the vase.
Why is it that after thousands of cycles, you humans find so much interest in a broken piece of pottery? What does it tell you?
Karamaga asked Anna. We humans did not. Karamaga asked Anna. We humans did not know where we came from. We spent hundreds of years piecing together our lost past. We learned a great many things. In all of Terran history, there are only a few pieces of the timeline we don't know. What caused the universe? What caused the dinosaurs to die us out? What caused the ancient floods? What caused us to start eating a more varied diet? We have a good idea, a few theories, some bits and pieces of proof.
So I search for the wall. So why search the waste heaps of other species? What can you learn about yourselves from this?
Asked Karamaga.
We don't go looking for answers for ourselves anymore, Ambassador,
said Anna with a smile. She started to head towards another exhibit in the new collection at the museum. We have spent so long searching through our past into the nature of matter, how to travel the galaxy. Humans have spent millennia just struggling to survive, and the whole time we kept searching. It's not the answers we seek by doing this, my dear Karamaga. No, we do it for the search. Knowledge is the one thing humans still hunt. End of story.
Pew.
Upvote.
Sing my space shanty. Let the stars draw
Weird advert. I'm not going to be doing too much talking. Voice is probably not the greatest today. Still need to get this done. But the chit-chat, the chin-wagging, all of that stuff. Probably keep it to a minimum today. Alrighty, on to the next story. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this latest edition of Read TFOS, where I take stories I've narrated in the past and update them to modern audio standards. This particular story is called Promise, written by LG Father Anthracite. You want to know why human soldiers are so scary? I can tell you. It's not what you think, though. Let me explain. HFY warriors are some of the most gifted fighters in the galaxy, raised from birth to be fighters, trained from day one to use any number of weapons and hand-to-hand techniques. They fight because it is all they know. Gruesome soldiers are all conscripts. They are selected at random and trained to fight using basic weapons and techniques, but they bring lifetimes worth of other knowledge to the fight, increasing their effectiveness. They fight because they must. Barso fighters are a few highborn officers and loads of Barso commoners who really like to fight. They fight because they want to. The Galagai warriors have mandatory service. Everyone spends 3 galactic standard cycles in the military after leaving their molting ponds. They fight because it is expected of them. But why do humans fight? Well, that's the tricky bit. They fight because they said they would. I know what you're thinking. Isn't that the same as the Barso? No. They aren't going into the military so that they can scrap the Xenos out. They aren't going into the military so that they can scrap with Xenos out in the fringe. Well, some do, I suppose. And some join because they have a tradition of family service. Some are there to kickstart their adult lives. Some are there because, and I quote, it beats prison. Humans become soldiers for all these reasons, but that's not why humans fight. Humans fight because, and this is really the disturbing part, because humans make something called promises. And that should scare you. Promises are without a doubt the single most frightening thing about humans. A promise. Well, that's hard to explain. Here, let me tell you a story about a human I knew. His name was Sergeant Smith. He wore this little silver charm on his neck, a cross it was called, an old Earth religious symbol. I asked why he had it, and he said he promised his mom he would never take it off. When I asked what a promise was, this is what he said. A promise means I have said to you, I will do this. I give you my word. Whatever this is. Keep a secret, share a fortune. If a human makes a promise, they keep it. Some of the most amazing things humans have done have been to keep promises. Climbed mountains so tall there is no air to breathe at the top. Swam miles and miles in frigid water. Carry their hurt and sick friends for miles through the wilderness till they are rescued. Some great cultural masterpieces of film, literature, and music are all a result of a promise. When you get down to it, a man only has a few things he can call his own. A man's word is one of them. My mom made me promise I would wear it, and I have not taken it off in 7 years.
That is why the human military is scary. They fight because they promise to kill you or die trying. End of story. Warming up. Not many mistakes in that one. Or retries. Boop. Up, dude. More ASMR. It's weird. I can distinctly hear the music playing, but it's not seeming to come through on desktop audio. Let's see. Filters. Add. Gain. Okay. There we go. Now it should be coming through nicely. Good evening, I Forget Worlds. I hope you're doing well. So now I can lower the volume on my side, and you guys can still hear the music. So I'm not trying to fight the music while I narrate. Nice. Very nice. As long as it's not a Triffid, we're all good. Ah, family. 106. Done that. Five. 105. Alrighty, on to the next story. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. You don't know what a Triffid is? My man, you need to go watch that movie. If you like B-rate, old science fiction, really, really bad movies, you need to go watch that movie. It's called Day of the Triffids. It is horrible. It is horrible on its own level. It is glorious. Anyways. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Nope. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. A Triffid is a plant from a sci-fi movie. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Read TFOS, where I take stories from across the world. Nope. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Read TFOS, where I take old stories I've narrated and update them to modern audio standards. This particular story is called Family, written by Algae Father Anthracite. Harvey was starting to get a little worried. The kids had been in the access tunnels for several hours, and he wasn't sure where they were. He pulled out his compad and called up the locations of the kids' compads. He saw that they were near the engine room and started aft towards the engines. As he approached them, he started calling their names. Charlie, Shauna, Chrislet, Avkrev, come out, wherever you are. He started banging on the bulkhead. After a few seconds, an air duct in the ceiling swung open. From two sides, 4 heads popped out. 2 boys and 2 girls. 1 pair of humans and 1 pair of Zitchki. Hi, Daddy, the little girl said. Hi, Daddy, said the little human girl. He held up his arms, and she shimmied forward and slid out of the duct into his upraised arms. He kissed her on the head and set her on the deck. He stood back up and reached up for Shauna. She also dropped into his arms. Again, a kiss on the head and set her on the deck. He looked up at the boys. They looked back down at him. Shoulders, he said. The boys giggled and disappeared back into the vent. A second later, a small pair of legs swung out. He grabbed the ankles and set them on his shoulders. Charlie reached his hands down and grabbed the top of his dad's head. Once he was stable, his dad grabbed his wrists and slid him down his back and landed on the deck. Harvey looked back up and saw the insectoid set of legs and did the same thing, setting Grizzlet on the deck. "Mess hall, dinner, go," Harvey shouted the last bit, and all 4 kids tore off. "Mess hall, dinner, go," Harvey shouted the last bit, and all 4 kids tore off down the passage, snapping the bulkheads as they passed. Harvey walked more calmly towards the mess hall. As he rounded the corner into the mess hall, he saw Rick Sutter. As he rounded the corner in the mess hall, he saw Rick Sutter putting 2 trays full of food onto the table. She was slightly shorter than he was, with a shiny blue-black carapace. He rubbed the knuckles of his hand across the junction between her thorax and abdomen. She trilled happily, and they both sat down at the table. The kids were already in their chairs and started to grab pieces of fruit and vegetables. There were also a small pile of pita and some shaved beef-flavored protein. Harvey pulled together a variation of a taco, and just before they took a bite, said, "So, how do they look?" Crystal. How do they look? Grizzlet swallowed his mouthful of cabbage leaf and said, "They looked pretty good. They were a little dusty, but there was no signs of animals." Charlie was still chewing some apple as he said, "The pipes, cables were in good shape too." The girls giggled at Charlie's bad manners. They were sharing a plate of fruits and veggies. They were talking back and forth in a mash-up of Zitchki, Terran, and some of their own made-up words. Rex Sutter had a piece of burgle root in her hand, and she asked, "How much did you map this time?" She bit into the piece of bitter tuber and chewed slowly. "From the galley to the life support," said Grizzlet. From the galley to the life support," said Grizzlet. No, that does say said Grizzlet said. Sorry, that was just 404ing my brain. "From the galley to the life support," said Grizzlet. "Well, good job." Well, good job," Rick Sutter said. "We have about 2 more weeks until we dock. You guys will be done inspecting and mapping way before then." "Good job, guys," said Harvey. "Dad, can we have a movie night tonight?" Shauna asked, clicking her mandibles excitedly. "Genja, Chokta?" asked Arkiv, using Zitchki to plead along with her sister. "Genja, please." The boys joined in too. "Genja, Dad, please, Chokka. If you guys help Mom clean up and promise to make room for us this pile... If you guys help Mom clean up and promise to make room for us in the pile, then okay." The children cheered. Rex Sutter chittered at them, and Harvey smiled, again rubbing his knuckles on her back. The pile of blankets and pillows on the floor was massive. There were a few low trays with drinks and some popcorn and citrus slices. The kids were squabbling over what to watch. Harvey and Rex Sutter were getting comfy in the pile. She looked at Harvey and used her crippling hand to hold his. "I'm so grateful you took us in, Harvey. I couldn't imagine raising 2 kids of my own." "Wait, I took you in?" He looked confused. He'd been terrified of trying to raise kids without a mom. Rex Sutter had been working with him when she found out her husband had been killed in a car crash. Harvey and his wife had helped her out immediately afterwards, watching her kids and having her over all the time after work. When Harvey's wife had taken ill, Rex Sutter had started to take care of all the kids. After several weeks, she had moved into the lower level of their house with her kids. After Harvey's wife had died, she kept taking care of all the kids. When the opportunity to buy a cargo vessel had come up, Harvey talked to Rex Sutter about joining him. The little family unit was moved out of a house and into a crew quarters of a small cargo ship. Harvey trained the kids to pilot and maintain the ship, and Rex Sutter dealt with the business end. They taught the kids, both Zitchki and Terran, and encouraged them to treat each other as siblings. After 6 months, the girls were nearly inseparable, and the boys were always testing each other, but always stood united against the girls. "It doesn't matter who took in who. We're family, and that's all that matters," Harvey said. The girls jumped in his lap, and the boys lay down on either side of their mom. Harvey smiled at his friend, winked, and pressed play. End of story. Good evening, Vijo. I hope you're doing well. Sorry, just a shooting pain in my sinus. Or the start of a migraine. One of the two. I'm not just jamming my finger into my face. V'ger. Yes. No, we made a mistake there. We being me. I made a mistake there. I didn't select everything. I get at least one a week. We're trying some new medication. We'll see if that helps. It's mostly because of my neck. I've got problems with it. Today it doesn't feel too bad. I normally tell because my neck is super tight. And then there's a tendon here that just pulls. And then I know I'm getting a migraine. Good evening, Ozark Mount Boy. I hope you're doing well. Been to a chiropractor. Didn't help. Been to 2 separate chiropractors. Didn't help. Yeah, I get the wife to attack the shoulder every now and again. The funny thing is, it's brought on by a bunch of stuff. I also stare at bright screens all day, so that doesn't help. At the moment, it's not too bright in here, but it can get a bit much. Oh, no, that's not what I wanted. That's what I wanted. Okay, yes, overwrite. I'm as well as can be, Ozark. As well as can be. But yeah, I mean, one of them said, do these exercises. The moment I do the exercises, I get a migraine. So. Ew, another one. We've done human spirits. We've done cold rage. That was the other night. Now we're doing the drunk. Cool. What are we doing? Recording 106. Yeah, I mean, I've tried. I've tried several times. It means I can't work for several days. That's how bad the migraines get. So, I'll wait until I'm in Portugal and all the stress of all this bullshit is done. And then we can try work that out. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this latest edition of ReTFOS, where I take stories I've narrated and update them to modern audio standards. This particular story is called The Drunk, written by Lostful. At the far end of the bar, the disheveled and smelly creature sat. He was slowly working his way through the stronger stuff they had, and while its impact showed, he somehow kept going. Golrath had been a bartender and bouncer for a long time, and while the raggedy clothing caused him to think the creature was a bum, he was beginning to realize something wasn't right. For starters, he kept his tab paid. He also had started showing up about a week ago, always appearing at about 1700 and leaving at around 2100. He also seemed to always head to the same seat at the end of the bar. This creature was a race he wasn't familiar with. He seemed to have no interest in the company. While this race was obviously supposed to be a bisymmetrical form it should be within the next 2 months real. Hopefully the beginning of next month, but we'll see how it goes. No. I don't think I played Marvel Rivals. Never played it. Squirrel Girl, different squirrel. Squirrel spark correctly, and not aggro. So, different breed of squirrel. Seemed to have no interest in the company. While its race was obviously supposed to be a bisymmetrical from appearances, what little of its face was visible under the hood was definitely asymmetrical, as though it had a severe damage and had been rebuilt rather than healed. A fake eye was apparent, glowing slightly red. He had already put away enough hard alcohol to kill most species, but he hardly seemed even phased beyond the slight glassiness to the one real eye. That eye also had that 1,000-yard stare often seen in former combat soldiers, emergency medics, and others with horrors in their past. "About done, buddy?" he asked as he approached the patron. The creature jerked slightly, as though just noticing him. Without a word, he held up its glass for a refill. Golrath had his credit sheet and knew there was plenty on it to cover the cost. The bar was almost empty, so Golrath didn't have much else to do, so he started pouring another. He was a little shocked as he brought it over to hear his gravelly voice. "Thank you, sir." He was a little shocked as he brought it over to hear his gravelly voice. "Thank you, sir." After seeing this being nightly for this long, he had never heard it talk. It always pointed out the drinks he wanted. The voice had almost sounded like it had gargled with glass. "Not a problem," Golrath said, trying to strike up conversation. "So what brings you to this corner of hell?" "Waiting for someone," he quietly replied. Golrath then noticed the right hand. The one holding the drink was prosthetic. This was a uniquely human trait, as most creatures couldn't handle the shock of losing a limb. While Golrath had never met a human, he had heard about them. So that was what was sitting at his bar. About all Golrath could remember about humans was that they were tough to kill. Other than that, that really didn't stand out. From the apparent damage he saw as he looked at this human, that was very true. "You're a human, right? Don't see many of you out this way. Who are you looking for?" Golrath continued, intrigued by the individual before him. The human didn't even look up, just quietly muttered, "Yeah, I'm a human. Looking for Balrock, that frequents these parts." "Hope he is a friend," guffawed Golrath. "Humans can't take Balrock on a good day, and with that fake arm and eye, I suspect you're well past your good days." The human laughs, genuine humor in his voice. "That I am, well past my good days." Golrath was starting to like this human. He had a friendly demeanor and made light of his injuries, something not very many could do. "What is your name?" he asked. "Bill Martin," the human replied, tight smile at his lips. "Well, Bill, it is a pleasure to make your acquaintance," Golrath replied. Bye. "Bill, it is a pleasure to make your..." Golrath replied, making a polite bow, one which was surprised Bill returned. As Golrath moved away, wiping down his bar and cleaning up, he couldn't help but feel some pity for the disabled human at the end of the bar. Fair Cal was not a friendly system, populated primarily by miners, pirates, and crooks. Most on this rock were dirt poor, barely making enough as miners to cover the cost of food. He figured Bill must have made money off this rock and was taking advantage of the low cost of living to live out his retirement after what Garath assumed was a tragic injury. Most likely the source of that glazed look and the need to drink nightly, trying to bury a memory. Bill continued to visit Garath every night, sticking to his set routine and chair. The days slowly dragging into weeks. Bill was never much of a talker, but he listened well. After a while, Bill was a friend to say hello to, but as regulars as they... After a while, Bill was a friend to say hello to, but as regular as the scenery. He didn't draw odd looks, but did get the occasional look of pity as he limped to the latrine or others saw his prosthetic hand. Bill had been coming regularly for about a month when something happened. Garath would never forget that faithful night. It was around 2000 when the bar doors opened, members of the trailing pirate cartel spilling in, 2 Balrogs and 3 Noran, the few patrons present quickly leaving upon seeing their arrival. One appeared to be ship captain. Garath knew the sickening certainty of what came next. It happened every month. They were here for protection money. Garath readied himself as the Noran captain approached the bar. He started with the traditional threats. Garath, you know the drill. Where do we go? Right. We need to arrange an accident for one of your patrons this time. Maybe the crippled up human in the corner. He snickered. At this, the 2 Balrogs began to approach Bill. Garath was already lifting his hands, a bag of security money in one, with everything changed. Garath was already lifting his hand, a bag of security money in one, when everything changed. You could feel the change in the very air, as though the warmth fled from the very room. Garath was still looking at the captain when he heard one of the Balrogs trip over a chair, falling and crushing a table. A look of pure horror left on his face as he stared. Turning to see what he was looking at, Garath no longer saw Bill, but where he had been now stood one of the strangest sights he had seen. Bill, still in his ragged clothing, was holding his drink in his left hand. His other, mechanical hand, had clamped itself around the skull of one of the Balrogs. Had Garath not witnessed it himself, he would never have thought the disabled human capable. Bill drank his drink, a tumbler of earth whiskey, neat, in a single shot, then crushed the Balrog's skull. Fractured bones popping out the side, and the sickening snap resounded across the hushed bar. Setting his glass down, the mechanical hand, no longer looking like a regular prosthesis, reached up and tore the rags from his body. As they fell away, a dark cloak enveloped Bill. As Bill turned towards the remaining pirates, he addressed the other Balrog, clearly ignoring the Noran. I've been waiting on you, Caline. I've been waiting on you, Caline. Do you remember me? He asked with a sneer. The realization was setting in with Garath that Bill might not have been the prey that he had assumed. Galen, the Balrog, obviously knew who approached him. He had already started crying and begging. The Noran seemed frozen, unsure of what was going on. As Bill moved, the shadow around him moved like a living being, showing glimpses of what was obviously power armor. What Garath had assumed was prosthesis was clearly cybernetic. High-powered augments for natural components normally seen on shock troops and soldiers. The cause of his limp was suddenly obvious. One leg was also cybernetic, with the cloak twisting around behind him, seemingly dimming the lights as he approached the terrified Balrog, who was begging the much smaller Bill. The Noran captain started to recover from his shock and moved towards the darkened shade. Bill's look towards the captain, though, was also seen by Garath. Garath felt his veins freeze. The man standing in the middle of the bar, hands still covered in viscera of the Balrog, wasn't Bill. Even Garath did not need to poster. Even Gorath did not need a poster to recognize the terrifying visage of the Void. The dead eye with the red one, his bodily damage apparent, though most believed that he was some form of nightmare released from the depths of space. Rumor held he simply occupied a body. Normally, trailing pirates would already be drawing weapons on this attacker. They believed they owned the system, but only one of these Noran appeared to not recognize their assailant. A fatal mistake. Reaching for a weapon he would never make it to. The Void launched a chair with deadly force and accuracy. Both shattered into a pile of broken lumber and limbs. The Void never even looked away from the terrified Balrog at his feet. The Balrog at this point was crying. He may have been twice the size of his hunter, but he knew death when he saw it. You have raided ships bearing my protection. Those men were delivering goods to me. You stole from me and took men I promised safe passage as prisoners. I had a discussion with your slaver friend. Let's just say it was high impact. But they gave me your name, Caelan. The Void, his voice picking up in volume and developing an unnatural echo. All illusions of the handicapped old drunk fading away like the darkness when the sun rises. I was following orders. He's the captain, stammered Balrog while pointing towards the Noran. The Void's gaze followed the pointed hand. Without looking away, the cybernetic leg smashed down on the Balrog's chest with enough force to crack the floor underneath. The Balrogs are sturdy creatures. It takes a lot to kill them. Garoth later would realize in shock he had never heard of a Balrog killed by anything but plasma fire, except, of course, by another Balrog. From the look of it, the Voids broke most of its ribs, destroyed its lungs, but somehow didn't stop its heart. Instead, it lay there, gurgling, slowly drowning in its own blood. The Void turned away. Slowly drowning in its own blood as the Void turned away. The two remaining Noran began to react now, finally overcoming their shock and fear. Both pulled plasma pistols and opened fire. The Void continued towards them, unfazed by the shots. At the last moment, the unnatural shroud he wore whipped up, swallowing the plasma whole. There was no splash of hot plasma, nor smell of burning flesh, metal, or clothing. Just the sudden absence of light from the rounds. As the bolts disappeared into the shroud, the Void pulled something from his side and extended it. Easily 6 feet long, with a wicked-looking barb at the end. The weapon conjured images of the Void's legendary ship, the Pequod, harpooning its poor victims. With a quick throw, the captain's last ally was pinned to the door. Only 2 feet of the spear was still visible in his chest. Another 2.5 feet stuck out the other side of the metal door. The captain, in desperation, began firing again, but the Void shroud kept consuming his bolts. In his panic, he allowed the pistol to overheat. As he looked down at the broken firearm, the Void stepped forward and reached out with his cybernetic hand, crushing the pistol and hand the Noran crushing the pistol and the hand the Noran captain held it with. The captain fell to the floor, screaming, mangled bits of hand and pistol still attached to his arm, but now at impossible angles and almost indistinguishable. "We are going for a ride, Captain," he said with finality. "We have much to discuss. But first, there is something that I must take care of," the Void stated as he turned towards Gorath. The Void paid his tab before he left. The Void handed Gorath a red flag with a white skull and instructed him to hang it behind his bar. With that, the Void grabbed the babbling captain and walked out the door. The captain begging for mercy and struggling. He was every bit as helpless as a newborn as this monster appeared to effortlessly drag him across the floor and out the door. Gorath never heard what the fate of the captain was, but he was fairly confident he didn't want to, regardless of the Noran captain's crimes against him. The police did come by and question him. They took images of the scene, then hauled off the bodies. Shortly after they left, a group of Trellan pirates showed up. This was the visit Gorath had dreaded. But it was a surreal experience. None of the usual threats of casual violence or execution thereof. They stopped, barely in the door, and one pointed at the flag in the background. The only question was, "Is that real?" Gorath confirmed it was, at which point the pirates apologized and left. Over the next month, more than a couple pirate vessels were found ripped apart, debris floating in space. All bore those hideous holes where a large metal harpoon had pierced them like fish before being torn apart. After that month, things got extremely quiet. None dared fly the Trellan colors. Pirates began to avoid the system entirely. In fact, the risk of the Void's wrath enough to discourage them the risk of the Void's wrath enough to discourage even the bravest. On occasion, Gorath would think back to the month he'd spent chatting and feeling sorry for Bill. He assumed Bill's handicaps and innocent demeanor were that of a scared, helpless human drinking away the horrors of his injury. Never would he have guessed that belying that veneer existed the horror drinking feet from him. And on occasion, Gorath would smile and chuckle, remembering how he'd feared Bill's safety of Fairkull. Looking at the end of the bar, wrapped in rags and drinking the finest earth bourbon Gorath could find, sat the calm figure, still polite and friendly. Only Gorath knew what was really under those rags. Bill had started coming back a week or so after his exit with the captain. He would occasionally disappear, but seemed to enjoy drinking there, and Gorath was certainly not about to deny him that. Business in the bar had picked up after the Void had flagged. Business in the bar had picked up after the Void flag had gone up too. Rumor had spread like wildfire. He was guarded by the demon of space. Suddenly, the doors burst open. Suddenly, the doors burst open. In walked 5 members of the nuclear organized crime circuit. One fired a plasma rifle into the ceiling, yelling for everyone to leave. From the corner of his eye, he saw Bill shoot down the last of his bourbon and scowl already on his face. Gorath sighed. He already knew that he would need a mop. End of story. Bill Door, Bill Door. Don't forget to update. So interesting thing, randomly, when I first started this whole spiel, any post that was older than 6 months, you couldn't update. Now you can. So that's why these old stories aren't updated. They were old when I started. Yes, I think that might be a different build, but hey, who knows? These stories can be weird.
Sailing through the cosmos, it's my final voyage, leaving Earth behind, seeking stars to my homage in the depths of space, when no one can hear, I'll sing my space shanty, let the stars draw near.
Good evening, Tana O'Neill. I hope you are doing well, and yes, very much how the sausage is made. Well, this is only part of the sausage. as my wife does all the video stuff, the scrolling text and all of that. But yeah, this is the important part. Well, to a degree. If I don't have scrolling text, there is a tragedy happening. Ugh. Excuse me. Three more stories and then we'll be done for the evening. All of them are 5 to 10 minutes. Then on to games. Pew pew! There is one hair that is just like, nope, I am going the other way, and is assaulting my nose hairs. It is an epic battle of monumental proportions. One where the stories will be told for generations to come. Maybe that's a bit dramatic, but, you know. Thing is, I use, like, beard balm to try and keep it from doing this. Nice, I think. Not sure if that's a good thing. Don't really do the whole snow thing here. But I've seen snow once, twice. In 40 years. Once, when I was driving a motorbike. It was fantastic. Take a look outside and you're like, yeah, not happening. 107. Pride. Yes, wow. I tried to trim it, but I can't make it too short. Ruins the look. Plus my wife will kill me. She likes the long moustache and beard. She threatened to kill me if I ever shaved it off. So, you know, complicated way of ending one's life. Anyways, on to the next story. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of HFY, where I take stories I've narrated before and update them to modern audio standards. This particular story is called Pride, written by Algae, Father Anthracite. The door opened, letting in a swirl of orange dust, and a creature that was barely discernible under the heavy gear it was wearing. A brown hide cloak covered in it. A brown hide cloak covered. A brown hide cloak covered it from the stooping shoulders to... A brown hide cloak covered it from stooped shoulders to just above the floor. The 2 feet were adorned with thick-soled boots, also made of brown hide. Above the cloak, a shock of white hair topped the head. The rest was obscured by a full-face breather mask. The creature closed the door and walked to the end of the bar. It sat on an empty stool. 2 thick arms emerged from beneath the cloak and pulled the mask up over the head and placed it on the bar. Beneath the mask was a grizzled face of a human. His cheeks were jowly and in need of a shave. His eyebrows looked like two snow-white caterpillars getting ready to fight as they bobbled up and down. He set a small cred chip on the bar and waited patiently for the barkeep. After a moment, the barkeep appeared, and the old human muttered a drink order. The barkeep nodded, slid it away, and returned a few seconds later with a stubby brown bottle. He popped the lid, set the bottle down, and picked up the cred chip, then slithered to the register, where he punched a few buttons, registered the transfer, and closed the order. A second later, the chip was back in front of the old man. The old man took a sip out of the bottle and smacked his lips. He then tilted it back and drained half of it in one go. He took a deep breath and seemed to physically relax a little. He continued to sip out of the brown bottle intermittently for several minutes. The door opened again, and several large reptilian Grecs came into the bar. They sat at the table near the old man and shouted to the barkeep to bring them brewed wines. The barkeep set drinks on the tray and slithered over to the table, set the bottles down, and slithered back to the bar. The Grecs were loud in their conversation and rude to the barkeep when ordering refills. The old man had finished a bottle of his drink and had ordered a new one. When one of the Grecs shouted for refills, the bartender nodded at them and went to grab the man his beer before filling the Grec's order. The Grec who had called for refills stood up and approached the old man just as the bartender arrived with his brood. "Forget it, old man, my brood wants a drink." The old man looked at the Grec and said, "You should sit and wait like a civilized being." The Grec turned to the old man and placed a stubby clawed finger on his chest. "The old man should know his place." The Grec pushed the old man's chest, causing him to lean back on his stool. The Grec was turning back to the bartender when the world suddenly slipped upwards. His head slammed into the bar, and the old man's hand held him there, head pinned to the bar, body slumped towards the floor, and scrabbling for purchase. The old man leaned in and whispered in his ear, "You should learn manners." He released the Grec's head, and the lizard slammed bodily into the floor. The old man turned to the drink and said, Good evening, James, Bernard, Jay Shane, all of you guys and girls, peeps, welcome, welcome. The old man turned to the drink and said, "Thanks," to the bartender, who nodded and pulled out bottles of brewed wine. The Grecs at the table had seen what happened and were approaching the old man. He sipped his drink and set it down with a sigh. He turned and stood up just as the Grecs arrived and helped up their friend. The Grec who fell on the floor stood in front of the old man. His spinal ridges started to raise. The old man looked up at him and asked, "Is your pride worth a broken arm?" The Grec just hissed at him. The old man shook his head and stood straight. When he wasn't slouched, he was nearly a head taller, and his shoulders were wider than the Grec's. He threw back the edges of the white cloak. He threw back the edges of the hide cloak, and before any of the Grecs could react, he grabbed the angry one's arm, twisted it behind the creature's back, spinning the Grec around in the process, and had the lizard man in a hammerlock before the cloak had time to land against his back. "Let me tell you kids something, because I can tell you haven't hit your first molt yet. Pride is nothing to get worked up over. Pride is what caused the war between our people. Pride nearly wiped out both our species. Cost me too goddamn many friends and nightmares. I'll be damned if I don't teach you a lesson about pride. I'm already damned by what your pride made me into. You want to be proud of something, then be proud of how calm and collected you are. Be proud that you can think before you act, and proud that you can learn from these mistakes. Be proud that you can resolve these types of situations with words, not fists. Pride and anger will get you killed, and if you aren't careful, those around you may suffer as well. So, stand up, be proud you learned your lesson, and let me buy the next round to celebrate a lesson learned. The man... The man released the reptile's arm, then waved to the bartender to put the brewed wine on his crit chip, still sitting on the bar. The Grank who caused the incident stood, rubbing his shoulder, eyeing the old man. You fought in the Grek Terror War. I did. You sit with us, teach us more. The old man smiled warmly and picked up his bottle. I would be proud to. End of story. Chewy. ASMR coffee drinking. Hydration of champions.
Keep reaching high, we're sailors of the cosmos, a crew full of might. Let's sing this sea shanty under starry night's light.
My eyebrows are so aggressive, they're attacking me.
Hoist the sails and let the wind guide our way.
Yep.
The spaceman said
Good old space shanties and music. All 7 of them.
to Saturn we'll do.
I use Windows 10.
Sailing through the interplanetary strait. With a hardy crew and a cargo.
A de-bloated Windows 10. Fair enough, Tanner. This is some blend from a brand called House of Coffees.
We'll navigate, chart the unexplored galactic highway.
Yeah, the volume disparity with the adverts is crazy. It's not like I can even control it.
With our voices loud and our spirits free, we'll voyage across the celestial sea.
108.
Voyage across the celestial sea.
Alrighty, are we ready for another one? Well, good, because we're doing another one. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another... Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Read TFAS, where I take... Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this latest edition of Read TFAS, where I take old stories I've narrated and update them to modern audio standards. This particular story is called The Remembered, written by Algie, Father Anthracite. You don't think it can be true, do you? They really don't know why they're there. Look, I wouldn't even begin to guess what they know. They live in their whole life in a cage they never even knew exist. If they are lucky, they never find out. If we are lucky. It just seems wrong. I mean, who would think that this is okay? Do you understand what one of those things could do? Just one? If this wasn't an absolute last-ditch effort, you and I wouldn't even know this place exists. It would be another rumor of the nets. If we weren't on the edge of annihilation, the existence of this place would still be a secret buried so deep, you would need a planetary core tap just to get started. It took an active galactic government to discuss this as an option. God only knows how many died because even they... God only knows how many died before they even thought of this. It just seems wrong. It is. But it's the only way the universe gets to sleep peacefully. I mean, couldn't we... No, for Grell's sake, shut up. This is hard enough as it is. Let me pilot in peace, will you? Steve was walking home from a party at Dave's place. Dave had turned 22 and was throwing a rager while his folks were out of town. Steve had been drinking since about noon and was tired. He decided to take a shortcut through the grazing field and hopped the fence. This was a dark, moonless night, and with only the stars to see by, Steve was wondering if he was off course. He felt a stiff breeze, which felt good. He leaned back and breathed deeply. When he opened his eyes, the stars were gone. Overhead was only blackness. Steve was wondering what happened when the sun round... Steve was wondering what happened when the stun round hit him. He was like... Steve was wondering what happened when the stun round hit him. He was out like a light. Grell, he's so heavy. He looks like he should weigh a few bonds, but he's like more like 50 bonds. The gravity here is ridiculous. If you weren't wearing an exosuit, it would crush you to death in about 3 microcycles. He probably actually weighs around 75 bonds, and it's all dense muscle tissue and bone. No hydrobladders, no pneumatic systems. It's all mechanical action. Its limbs are so strong, the body has a natural inhibitor to prevent it from ripping itself apart. If this thing flexed a limb and hit you, you would be lucky to survive. What? Who told you that? Look, I know we're both condemned prisoners, and you don't really care about what happens to you. But I, for one, would like to live as long as possible. So read the briefing. Jeez, man. You were in the military before you deserted. You should understand the importance of intel. Sorry, I'm just nervous. What happens if it wakes up? Pray to Grell that it stays out the whole flight. You finish strapping it in, use the chains. I don't care how heavy they are, use them. I'm gonna turn this bucket around and get us off to target. I'm gonna turn this bucket around and get us to target. I'd rather go back to the front lines than stay on a ship with this thing any more than I have to. Steve woke up, and everything hurt. His head was pounding, and he had what felt like a pound of cotton in his mouth. What was actually his... Steve woke up, and everything hurt. His head was pounding, and he had what felt like a pound of cotton in his mouth, but it was actually his tongue. He tried to rub his eyes, but his hand stopped short. He blinked a few times. Where was he? What was going on? Steve cleared his eyes by ducking his head to one side and rubbing them with one hand. Once he got his eyes open, he saw that he was in a white room, and his arms and legs were bound by what looked like thin chains to the floor. He appeared to be wearing some sort of bodysuit. He sat up and looked around. There was no door, no lights. Even the chains just sort of emerged from the floor. Light emanated from every surface. Hello? Can I get some water, please? Maybe some aspirin? Yeah. He called. After several seconds, a small opening seemed to appear in the floor, and a small stand rose out of it. A small spigot began streaming water, which drained from the top of the stand. Steve bent down and drank water for nearly a full minute. When he sat back, the water stopped, and the stand sunk. When he sat back, the stand sunk down into the floor, disappearing without a trace. He couldn't even feel the seam on the floor where it had been. He couldn't even feel the seam on the floor where it had opened. Can someone tell me what's going on? Anyone? Hello? What's with the chains? He pulled at these, and they rattled a little. Anybody? Hello? Please calm yourself. All will be explained, a voice said behind him. Steve turned and looked at some sort of nightmare made flesh. It looked like an unholy union of a craptopus. Craptopus? That is exactly what it says. Of a craptopus and a polar bear. Steve scurried back as fast and as far as the chains would allow. Jesus, feck! What the feck? What are you? Steve was pulling at the chains, trying to put more distance between him and the thing that would forever haunt his nightmares. What's going on? Did something drug me? Did someone drug me? Am I hallucinating? He pulled the chains as hard as he could. Please, stop. You'll break the chains and yourself. Be calm. I mean you no harm. The chains are to protect me. Your kind are known to be stronger than any known species, and one stray gesture from you could leave me incapacitated, if not dead. I assure you, I mean you no harm. Be calm. The thing waved a furrowed tentaclaw at him. Steve kept pulling at the chains for a moment, but the creature came no closer. What's going on? Why am I here? He asked, still as far away as the chains would allow. We require your aid. I am Renathaxel. I represent the Spiral Arm Coalition. We are a collective of nearly every known intelligent species in the Cygnus arm of the galaxy. We are a peaceful group. We have been watching your people for a very long time. We would not normally consider contacting your people, but an emergency has arisen. Invaders from the Scootin' Crux arm are threatening our people. Invaders we will be ill-equipped to deal with. What can I do? I'm just one guy. I'm sure you have lasers and photon torpedoes and stuff. How could I possibly help? Steve was caught between confusion and panic. He started to breathe deeply, trying to calm himself down. Maybe Dave had slipped something into his beer. It would be just like Dave to dose him with acid or something. He was a friend, but he could be a real asshat sometimes. Well be pleased. You do not know. You really have no clue, do you? The creature said. No what? I don't know anything. I'm just a farmhand. I barely made it through high school. Your people, humans, they are the greatest weapon in the history of the galaxy. They were bred over thousands of generations to be unstoppable warriors. Your planet's history contains more bloodshed and war than all of the galaxy. You are the embodiment of destruction. Were it not for the force field between us, the very illuvia of your body would infect and destroy mine in mere days. I would not even be in this room if it were not condemned. I would not even be in this room if I were not a condemned criminal. That is how likely it is that you will kill me. Not even intentionally. Those chains you pull at are some of the densest and strongest we make. There is simply no need for anything stronger. And yet, you have nearly broken them twice. As I said, we are a peaceful coalition. We have brought you here to fulfill your purpose. Before we could do that, we felt we had need to explain. You are our champion. We felt that you would know. You are our champion. We felt that you should know. I'm afraid that you will not be going home. I'm sorry. What do you mean I won't be going home? Where will I be? Steve began pulling at the chains again. Where am I going? Where? He started to panic. This time one of the chains snapped. Steve began pulling at the other side. What's happening? Answer me! We are headed to the main outpost of the Crux invaders. When we arrive, the ship will be boarded, and I, along with my crewmate, will most likely be killed right away. You, on the other hand, will prove difficult for the enemy to even injure. On behalf of the Spiral Arm, allow me to apologize and offer thanks. You will save an unknowing civilization. Never know the glory of your heroic deeds to serve. The creature bowed low, the least of what Steve thought he was doing. At least that's what Steve thought it was doing. Another opening appeared in the floor, and this time a rifle came through the floor, a 2-2 with a stack of ammo and a small sack. The weapon is loaded, and There. He was the lowest power that we could find, but have no fear, it is powerful enough to kill anything you might encounter. That suit will provide protection against shock rounds and the like. We are landing. We are landing. I would ready myself if I were you. The chains fell away, and Steve grabbed the gun, checked the breech to see if chambered round. He took the ammo and stuck in a small sack that was under the pile. He took the ammo and stuck it in a small sack that was under the pile. He pointed the gun at the creature on the other side of the room, but it was already walking out the opening it had come in through. He took the last box of rounds, dumped them into a pocket, and followed the creature out. This is going to make me ill, said the Imperator. One being did this, said the witness. All around them lay bodies of Crux invaders. They were all in some sort of disarray. The lucky ones were pierced with a small hole, which seemed to have liquefied the majority of their internals, killing them instantly. Others were covered in lesions, blisters, leaking fluids from their orifices and seeping waste from everywhere. They found the human clutching a twisted hunk of metal and wood, surrounded by torn and tattered remains of hundreds upon hundreds of corpses. He was barely breathing when found. The air was too high in chlorine for his kind, and he was dying, but not dead yet. He sat, panting, as the witness approached. The Coalition had demanded that the creature be sent. The Coalition had demanded that the creature they sent would die, unknown even to its friendly forces. But if I, without honor, was true and just, the witness would bear the memory of what transpired, and pass the knowledge along when his time came. The witness knelt next to the dying man, its exosuit wearing softly. Human, tell me your name. Name is Stephen. Stephen, know this. I will remember your service. Your name will pass down through history amongst the witnesses. Stephen will be remembered alongside all heroes of Earth. Urkel, Ezekiel, Panos, Helen, Ramirez, Osama, Ahmadi, and Stephen. You have saved us again. Go now. Rest. The man closed his eyes, and his chest stopped moving. He would long be remembered. End of story. Cheers, Coyote Havoc. Thank you for popping past. It's very much appreciated. Yeah, I think that's going to be me for the evening. Oh! My voice is starting to, worsen. We'll do more tomorrow. Unfortunately, some days the voice just doesn't do everything it should. It doth protest. What's today? Wednesday. Cool. Alrighty, everyone. Thank you for spending your time with me in this day and age. It is very much appreciated that you honored me with your time. Hopefully I was entertaining enough and at least helped the time pass by somewhat. I will be back tomorrow to do the same thing. So I hope to see you then. Anyways, hope you have a good one. Cheers.